And I think, I'm sure you'll agree with me, it's a very hot topic, especially for this time of the year, where we're talking about young talent. We're talking about and I want to circle back to the being an introvert, Luvo, because I think that is something both of us can relate quite strongly to. And I think for me, what a strength that introverts have, that I would say extroverts might not always have, generally, is the fact that we just have this uncanny way of reading people. We have this uncanny way of reading behavior, because most of the time we're quiet, we're sitting somewhere in a corner
Sitting in the
observing.
corner, observing.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Minding
Yes.
our business.
So I think it's identifying your strengths, because it took me a while to know what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. As a result, so many things in my life. Um, Take your time. Life is not a competition. Own your lane, be in your lane, and be comfortable in your lane. Because leave this conversation with two young people, like I said, me, I did have a father growing up. I was raised by my friends. We raised each other, actually.
Sure.
After my grandmother passed, I thought this is it, my life. So I think people might take them for granted, and I see it as a door opener. Maybe someone, I don't know, by chance might see, okay, oh, this is the guy we've been looking for. The words for my take or how our next there's no going back to school, there's nothing. So I think what I'd advise the youth is look for back work. I mean, seek help, identify your strengths and your passion, and then the rest will fall into place.
Ideas Exchange fam. I quickly wanted to interrupt this video intro by giving you a quick background to the guest that I had on the latest Ideas Exchange podcast. I was just so excited to jump right into the conversation with Luvo that I did not do him justice by doing a proper introduction. So, Luvo is a specialist and a professional in the built environment industry here in South Africa. As a property development maestro at Binion Property Group, he led a 450 million rand project crafting 602 residential sectional title units. Now, I am making sure I'm not missing any of the facts so that I don't do him any dishonor in terms of relaying his credentials to you. So I did make some notes, so please bear with me. From juggling diverse teams to negotiating contracts, he is a project management virtuoso. From the Kamoa Copper Smelter Complex to FID IC contracts and NEC3 Option B, Luvo is a skillful player. But not just that. He is an effective communicator, an agile problem solver. He's not just in the industry, he's the game changer you want in your corner. And more than that, I figured who better than Luvo to give you, a young graduate stepping into the world of work, some real life and shared experiences of how he has actually navigated those murky waters of when he stepped into the world of work. So please continue to watch. Hope you've got your pens and notebooks ready. He's got some nice tips on how to actually get out there, have your voice heard, how to identify and approach a mentor, and much more. He also shares a very inspirational story of his late grandmother, so you do not want to miss this. Enjoy.
Oh, thank you so much for joining me on our latest Ideas Exchange convo. And I think, I'm sure you'll agree with me, it's a very hot topic, especially for this time of the year, where we're talking about young talent. We're talking about how young people, so whether they graduates, entering into their final year, but they're already thinking ahead, right, into the world of work, and what career to pursue, versus you've got some graduates who have already graduated and they're kind of stuck. They don't know which way to go. So I'm hoping we can kind of unpack a little bit and see if we can help some of our young aspiring professionals out there. So Luvo, the perspective I'm hoping that we can take with our conversation is really just in terms of, from a business perspective, from a business expert perspective. I think, just from your observations, have you had experiences where in your companies or companies that you've worked at, have you had young people stepping into that space? And what were sort of the observations in terms of?
Well, I haven't, experienced that in terms of having worked with young people, but I mean, obviously, looking at my experiences and what I went through, I would say I think just knowing your strengths and your weaknesses is the first step, and also being able to ask for help, I think, is the major killer in any growth of everyone. I mean, if you think that you know everything, or because obviously you'd say you probably got into the graduate program as an A student, that the world is your oyster, not knowing that the work environment is totally different to school environment. And in a work environment, you need to show up in terms of being able to work with a team. Even though you were obviously alone at school, you studied alone, you passed alone, but in a work environment, it's totally different, So I think just by knowing your weaknesses and your strengths and knowing that if you've been a loner this whole time, you need to open up to people. You need to know how to ask for help, and also you need to be able to work with the team. I think for me, that's where my biggest, I'd say, learning curves were. Being an introvert, shy person, I mean, most people would disagree with you there, but when it comes to in a professional environment, I mean, raising your hand is not an easy thing to do, especially in meetings and in the boardrooms where you want to ask, but you're scared or you don't know how to ask, or that thing of you're scared of asking a stupid question. And I learned that there's no kind of thing as a stupid question. So I think it's knowing or having the ability to put your fear aside, and putting your hand up. If you don't know anything, you must ask.
And sorry to interject there, because that was actually an angle I did not think about, because I'm also an introvert, and raising your hand or just sort of letting people know of your existence in a room, it's the most painful thing ever. I mean, like, so I want to ask you a double barrel question, and I'm asking it in the specific sequence for a purpose, right? So the first part of the question is, so as an introvert, what were almost your coping, I don't know if I want to call them coping mechanisms, but what were those sort of life hacks, right, that you tapped into to actually build your profession and to build your career to where you are now? And then the follow-up question on that is, maybe just share with the audience, where are you now? Like, what is your credentials? Because I think so often as young people, we give up on life even before we started. And especially when you are an introvert, that giving up and that self-sabotaging, it's real, right? So please share a little bit of how you, what's your life hacks?
So how I managed to navigate was, obviously I identified a person who I could obviously talk to, a person I felt comfortable around, and then I took that obviously as an advantage to say, okay, do you think if we can both go to the person, like for example, my line manager? I remember the time when I was at Aricon, we had different line managers as the 4 graduates that joined at the year. We all had different line managers, but I think I got the most chilled guy, and I thought he was the most strict guy because he was one of the directors of the firm. So every time when I had to approach him, I had to obviously seek advice from the person which I had then friended at the time in the company, which I felt comfortable to, because when you get to a company, there's that one person who's going to open up towards you. So that was my channel, and that's how I overcame being an introvert. So everything that I wanted to go and ask, I had to go through my guy before I took it with my line manager. And funny thing is, I didn't need to, because my line manager was there to help and guide. Being in the position where I was, I'm sure he was also in that type of position. So currently, how I'm still dealing with it is, I'm one person who's realized that asking for help is the greatest thing you can ever do for your career.
Yes.
And in terms of where I am, as I've said before, I've been bothering this guy for such a long time. He told me, because I told myself, you know what, if I don't ask, I'll never get a mentor. And no one's going to come and say to me, Luvo, I want to mentor you because of so and so. So I bothered him. I commented on his post on LinkedIn. I made sure that I engaged with him to a point where he actually took notice. So I think it's just a matter of putting fear aside and just going for it, because at the end of the day, there's no do-over. It's one take.
Yes.
And yeah, I think my advice would be to, obviously, if there's no one in the company that you feel comfortable to, put your differences aside or your fear aside, and just ask. If it's a stupid question, then you'll know then if it's a stupid question. Yeah. I hope I answered your question.
You did. But just missing, because you're quite a modest guy. So you're in the building profession. So maybe just give us a bit of a peek behind the curtain. So just in terms of you started off from that kind of humble beginning to, I know. And so, okay, let me just kind of take a step back. So I need to let the audience know that you and I have already chatted off camera, right? So you also shared with me, you are currently, I think you're studying your master's, aren't you?
Yes, no, I've completed the coursework, I think, a year
Apologies,
ago.
yes.
I'm just undecided about my research topic, mostly because the one that I had, I just struggled, obviously, to get feedback from the people that I want to get data from. So I'm still contemplating about changing my topic, but yeah, I'd say I'm 90% complete, because I just need to do my research paper, and then
Okay.
So yeah, the background is that so in my career, I've been in the mines all my career, and I decided to do a career change, mostly because I think taking advantage of how broad the built environment is, and as a surveyor, you aren't limited to just being on site or working as a consultant. You can be a quantity surveyor for insurance companies. You can be a quantity surveyor for banks. So I just took advantage of that, and I decided if I study further, I'd obviously then end up in property, because property is a never-ending business. I can tell you that all the billionaires in the world do have a property portfolio, so it's a never-ending business. And so I decided, you know what, I want to also be part of that. So I then decided to do property management as a specialty, which is also known as facilities. But facilities management is a very broad also environment where there's a lot of services within the facilities management. Yeah.
Okay, and if you don't mind, I wanna open the curtain even wider, because you shared. Would you mind sharing with the audience, just in terms of your grandmother? Because I thought that was just a very powerful story.
Yeah. So yeah, my grandmother, my late grandmother, she's late now, I think, for 23 years. She started a school out of nothing. She used to teach under a tree. and then by her luck or by her fortunes, managed to raise some funds through, I think it was a councillor at the time or mayor, then helped her to build a school in Togoza called the Mzamo Primary. And then obviously because she wasn't qualified to be a principal, she couldn't be a principal of the school, but she was obviously in the SGB and she played a key role. I mean, in that neighborhood where the school is, I mean, you can ask anyone about Mistress Sibuta. She was a very strong individual. She also, what she did was she had this thing of taking strays. I wanna call it strays. She used to adopt for a short period. I mean, if let's say you're 10 years old, she would take you in for at least maybe until you're 18, and then she'd probably arrange some work for you, and then she'd let you be on your own. So she was a very strong individual, and I think being at Ericon, where was part of a graduate, I'd say it's a graduate program. It was called Limelight. So under Limelight, we had corporate social responsibility. We had a team that was responsible for socials. We had a team that was responsible for just putting the company on social media. So I was part of the CSIR. And I think that's when I got to actually experience helping people who were very, need of help. So that, for me was when I realized, oh, okay, this is how it feels to help people. And I realized that, okay, I get this from my grandmother because, I mean, we used to, grow up with strangers and make these strangers our siblings to a point where some of them now have their own families, So I think, helping people is something that was installed in me. Even though sometimes you want to pour, even though your cup is empty, you still feel the need that you want to pour from this empty, Because I think there's that feeling of content or that feeling of joy when you actually put something on level that before you helped, they really needed the help. So I think. Yeah, that's a short story about my grandmother. Yeah.
And it's just so powerful because I think there's obviously a lot of layers because there has to have been somebody who shaped that belief system for your late grandmother as well, for her to have done that, And
yes, definitely.
and I think especially in communities, rural communities especially, it's very easy to lose hope. It's very easy to think that there's nothing more out there for me, because of, and it can maybe be because of a combination of what people pour into your life, tell you, what you observe. And I think it's this series especially is so important for me because I want to speak to people that have this passion and this at their core, this vocation to help young people because we just have so much talent, Luvo, in this country. And
so much.
Yeah, and I think even beyond the borders of South Africa, right? But these young individuals just need someone to speak hope into them. They just need someone to tell them what you see now, there's so much more out there. There's so much more beyond what you are seeing,
Yes, the nature, it's the nurturing, that needs to be, explored. And I think helping people is not just about feeling good about yourself. It's giving a chance, an opportunity to someone that never in their wildest dreams thought, I'd probably own a pair of shoes. People that walk food to school. If you buy a pair of shoes for that child, you've totally changed their lives. So I think the upbringing of my grandmother shaped that for her because she had a very tough upbringing. Separated at a very young age, not obviously because of choice. Her father had to leave to go work. And then she had then also had to go and stay with relatives. Her mother worked in Cape Town, her father worked in Joburg. And the relatives that stayed with her, obviously, I think they saw the light in her. She was not treated a way that a child should be treated. So she had a very rough upbringing. I think that's where that all started for her. And when she got an opportunity to help people, I think she just took it with her, and she never, up until her last day. I mean, I remember some of the times when we used to go to school with her. I mean, on my sick days, let's say, I would go to class with her and just sit there and just watch how she used to also sell sweets, by the way.
Sure, quite an industrious woman, eh?
She was an unbelievable person, strong character. And yeah, I think take that from her, and I hopefully would be in a position where, like I said, I'm being mentored at the moment, and I mean, want to take up a mentee at some point in my life, because also growing up without a father figure is also a very tough thing as a male. And then when you get to a point where the questions that you need the answers to, no one has them. You have to focus yourself. So, I mean, my advice to the youth obviously would be, at first, just identify your passion. I think also realize that very late is that passion pays,
Yes.
After identifying your passion, seek help,
Yeah.
So I didn't find value in VAC work at the time, but I realized if I had applied for, I'd probably be, I think, in a better position than I am right now. As people from the Eastern Cape, I wouldn't call myself as a person, but from the Eastern Cape fully, because I was born and raised in Joburg and then left for the Eastern Cape. I got to witness both sides of where I grew up in a multiracial school. And I had a swimming pool, had a rugby field, a tennis, and then I had to move to Eastern Cape where there was not even a tennis court or soccer field. It was just mostly classes, So I experienced both those worlds, and I think that shaped my career a lot to say, okay, education one is the way out. Yes, you can be an entrepreneur, but I think have a fallback plan.
Yes.
Education isn't working out. Okay, let's say your business isn't working out. Sorry, have a fallback plan. I mean, you can see how ex-soccer players, for example, struggle. Finish matric, they get paid money to play soccer, and then they get injured, and then that's it. There's no going back to school. There's nothing. So I think what I'd advise the youth is look for VAC work. I mean, seek help, identify your strengths and your passion, and then the rest will fall into place.
And I want to circle back to the being an introvert, Luvo, because I think that is something both of us can relate quite strongly to. And I think for me, what a strength that introverts have that I would say extroverts might not always have generally, is the fact that we just have this uncanny way of reading people. We have this uncanny way of reading behavior, because most of the time we're quiet, we're sitting somewhere in a corner observing. Exactly. Minding our own business. And I think that in itself, I feel a lot of young people must understand it's not a weakness. It is actually such immense power, because what you then quickly learn is, and like what you did, you then can understand, okay, who can I approach, who can't I approach? You also know the style within which to approach, right? So I think that is also quite important. The one thing I would say that we are not always very strong in is the fact that we don't know how to sell ourselves, right? Because that almost feels like the magic of an extrovert. Yes.
It feels like you're showing off.
Yes. So I mean, how did you overcome that obstacle?
So I think how I overcame that, after doing my postgrad, my first job ever was at Nike. Nike ran Cresta, selling running shoes. So obviously now you can imagine an introvert trying to sell running shoes.
The deep end of the
So
pool.
what I did was, as a person who's also inquisitive, and I wouldn't say I'm an academic, I love reading. I do
Yeah.
read a lot. So I just went and studied the shoe. I mastered the type of materials that make up the shoes, the different types of running shoes where you can find. So I made sure I know the product, which would
Yes.
also be easy for me to approach my customers.
Yeah.
So I would also just let the customer come to me. I wasn't one of those people that goes to a customer and say, "Hey, do you want to help?"
Yeah.
No. I'd mingle around the door, and then obviously if the other team members are helping out, I'll just isolate my targets, go to the person who didn't ask for help, just
Yes.
walk around them until they say, "Hey, can you help me with something?" I think that for me was the one thing how I overcame being in my introvert state, is that
Mm.
obviously I know the product, I learned the product,
Yes.
which
Yes.
was easy for me to sell the product. I think
Yeah.
that became a passion of mine. So I love sales, by the way. It's something I've done. And
Really?
after I left Aricon, I met, so I used to buy blazers. So
Yes.
there's thrift blazers where you get them downtown Joburg. They were obviously donated from America or Italy or wherever. I would buy them,
Yes.
I would fix them up. So I'd buy them for like 80 Rand, fix them up, sell them for like 400 Rand. And then I came
Okay.
across a page on Instagram. It was a bespoke suiting company called Tailor Me at the time. It was still in its early stages. I approached them. I told them, listen, this is what I'm doing. I'd love to come and learn about the fabrics
Mm.
and how to actually craft a garment from scratch.
Mm.
Fortunately for me, the guy was a CA, George Diab, an accountant who left the corporate world as well to go into this
Mm.
business. I think also for him, it's in his bones. He's Lebanese, Lebanese and Turkish
Wow. No,
fabrics and garments.
absolutely.
So
Masters.
master. So he took me under his wing. He told me, "Listen, I'll teach you everything you want to know." So I did that for a year, and I was earning the
Yeah.
same money I was earning at Aricon as a QS, where I was selling suits. So I think for
Wow.
me, yeah, I'd say overcoming the thing of not, being a person that's vocal, is
Yes.
finding people that you are comfortable to talk to,
Yes.
finding people that will accept you for who you are. Because if it wasn't for that, I think
Mm.
I wouldn't have succeeded in sales.
Very true. And gosh, I mean, yeah, we didn't touch on the sales thing when we chatted a little bit about your background off camera. So this is a very interesting tidbit. And also a little bit um I would say it flies almost in the face of how one would typically picture an introvert, because again, you don't, when you think of sales, when you think of retail, you don't necessarily picture an introvert in there, because funnily enough, in my previous life, I used to be a sales rep at Foschini.
Yes,
Um, I was the worst sales rep ever, because if you manage to find me hiding amongst the
hiding
clothing
something.
items, then I'll help you with gladness. But other than that, no. But there's a few golden threads I've picked up from what you have described yourself, Luvo. And I think for me the one thing is that you are a keen learner. You and correct me if I'm wrong. And because of where you are at life, and because that has been your journey, I would almost want to say that you are a lifelong learner, that you recognize when you're stepping into a space, you
Yeah,
need to understand the space, you need to understand the craft. And I feel almost like that is what adds and contributes to the element or the level of confidence, right? Within which you carry yourself, within which you approach people.
correct. I mean, if you don't know what you're talking about, how can then have a
Yes.
conversation with the
Yes.
person? So I think, yeah, I mean, learning is the first step, And I think for me, that's how I overcome. And I also actually read a book. This is a funny story. I was introduced to this book by a friend of mine, which has also helped me a lot in terms of my confidence. It's called Rules of the Game by Neil Strauss. So Neil Strauss is a writer who, at the time, I think it was the 80s, wanted to infiltrate something that was very popular in America. It was called pickup artists. So these guys used to pick up girls in clubs, and they actually had a scientific way of doing it. So the guy was a writer, so he wanted to. It was even on VHM1. They even had a show on VHM1. It was kind of like Big Brother, where all these nerds. So the guy who came up with this formula was a nerd. You know how nerds are treated in America. If you're a nerd, you're bullied. You're nothing.
Yeah, you're ostracized. You're not even part of society.
So this German guy who was a nerd, tall guy, came up with this formula where he used NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. He used psychology.
Yes.
He used a thing called peacocking, where you paint your fingernails. You wear just something that's going to attract people's attention. So he then infiltrated the society, and they have code names. So his code name was Style. And his guru who came up with this was Mystery. So in the book, so he just tells you the story of how he infiltrated the pickup artist society and how these guys have actually helped a lot of people to overcome the fear of talking to people. So the book wasn't just about picking up girls, by the way. So these guys were actually teaching seminars and how to give confidence to guys, to how to speak up in a room at work, how to present yourself at school. As students, you don't know how to do a presentation. So the depthness of the book, I think also this is how I got to also then find my confidence, because that book helped me a lot. I was a very shy person growing up, and people would say they disagree with me, because when I get comfortable around my clan, you'll see the real me. I'm a loud mouth. But if I'm around people I'm not comfortable, you won't hear me say a single word. So, I mean, that
That's
book,
so interesting.
Rules of the Game by Neil Strauss, very interesting book. Very, very interesting book. It gave me a lot of confidence to be able to talk to anyone. To be able to read body language, because it teaches you also about body language. When a person is giving you their back, or they're giving you their left or right shoulder, if your posture, or when you say something. So small things like when you walk into a room, you always have to smile on your face. And the first person that your eyes connect with is the person you're going to go and have a conversation with, because that's a person who's noticed you. So small things like that. Helped a lot. So I think the curiosity of wanting to learn.
That's amazing.
So
I'm not going to volunteer your services as a mentor. I think when you are ready, people can look you up on LinkedIn. But I just, before I ask you, just to sort of see us out of the conversation with a few sort of pearls of wisdom that you can leave with our young people out there, I just wanted to thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing some of your story. I do hope that I can invite you again on Ideas Exchange. Hopefully by then you might have had a mentee coming along, and we could maybe even have a chat with you and your mentee about the experience.
Definitely. No, thank you for the platform. Like I said, I mean, these platforms, people might take them for granted. I mean, I see it as a door opener. Maybe someone, I don't know, by chance might see, okay, oh, this is the guy we've been looking for. The words or my take, or how I'd leave this conversation to the young people, like I said, for me, I didn't have a father growing up. I was raised by my friends. We raised each other, actually. So after my grandmother passed, I thought, this is it, my life. So I think it's identifying your strengths, because it took me a while to know what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. As a result, so many things in my life. Take your time. Life is not a competition. Own your lane. be in your lane and be comfortable in your lane, because I grew up with a lot of friends and most of them are successful. It has never come to me or bothered me to a point where I compared myself to them. So be comfortable in your shoes. Take your time. You are gonna do some mistakes, and that's part of learning. And stick to your passion. If you love being in the kitchen, go to culinary school, become a chef. If you love gadgets, you love playing with gadgets, do IT, or just stick to what you love doing. And I think, as the greats will say, passion pays. I mean, I don't think Jamie Oliver became one of the famous chefs by chance. I don't think.
Absolutely.
I think that's my advice to the youth. And just go out there, man, and try and make a difference wherever you are, even if it's buying someone a candy.
The
smallest you can do it.
I love that. Kindness does matter indeed. And Luvo, thank you again. Those are, and I think sometimes people underestimate the simplicity of those words of wisdom that you've just shared now. But you know what? They are so powerful, because what it does is it helps you to reframe your mindset. Because if your mindset isn't healthy, and if it isn't fixed on some path, you are just going to flounce around in life. And so thank you again for that. And I also just want to kind of say that, because it kept on popping up now as you was talking, is that to every young person out there, don't underestimate learning. I think sometimes there's this arrogance when they're interacting with somebody who's older, because the question in the back of their mind is always like, what do you know? It's 2024. But this is the time now where you actually have to speak less and listen more. Where you have to be a sponge, just listen and learn and raise your hand to volunteer. So I
agree with you there 100%.
Luvo, thank you so much. Thank you for your time, and hope to see you back here with your Menzi next time.
anytime. I always make time for this. I appreciate the gesture a lot. So anytime you want me to come and give my 2 cents, let me know.
Awesome. And thank you to everyone. Hope to see you on our next Ideas Exchange episode, and stay posted and stay subscribed so that you don't miss the next video in our Young Talent Development series. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Luvo.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.